The following podcast contains alcohol-enhanced conversations about alcohol, as well as a potential for discussions about topics of dubious, disturbing, possibly offensive, but usually hilarious interest. The opinions stated herein are solely of the persons making them, and any endorsement of these opinions by any other party is not implied. Foul language is likely, but intolerant viewpoints are not. Listener intoxication is advised. Hello and welcome to episode 61 of the Whiskey Tangent Podcast. I'm Scott.
I'm Ed.
And today we're doing another one of our deep distillery dives, this time one whose whiskeys, at least the two we've tried on the podcast already, have become absolute favorites of ours.
Love them.
But because they have so many varieties, we figured they warranted an entire episode of their very own, and they are the Journeyman Distillery. Also to help us with our journey, are two journey women, members of the local lounge in Mount Holly, and brand new to the podcast, but certainly not brand new to whiskey. And Ed's here to introduce them to you, as well as the three joyous juices that we'll be judiciously judging in this jocular, jam-packed Journeyman Jubilee tonight.
Holy alliteration.
Well done, well done.
So, thank you, Scott. So we have Alleah and Paula.
How's it going?
Welcome, ladies.
So Alleah and Paula have earned the distinct honors of having drank over 100 different whiskeys in the local lounge that we all share. I have too, but I will be quite clear, and they would want me to be quite clear, that they drank it faster than I did.
Yeah, and I'm like 85.
Wait, are you actually part of the 100 Club?
I am.
Oh, you actually achieved it.
I did.
You did.
But it's below ours, so
Yeah,
that's...
Yeah, it's
See,
after
you,
yours.
You congratulated me. You know I did. You're just being snarky.
Wow.
But so Alleah was second to do it in our lounge.
In 2020.
And Paula, I think, was fourth.
Oh my God, you
Yes.
did it in 2020?
I did it in 2020.
Yeah, she did it in like a month or something. It was like honestly, she did it like in 6 months. It was ridiculous.
Anders decided
No.
it, and a month later, Aaliyah was at the top of the list.
No, that's a funny story,
She'll
but-
tell you that story because I want to tell
Okay,
it.
yeah.
So the point that we're trying to make is that we've never brought in two women, and we're dubbing them the whiskey chicks. The whiskey
Yes.
chicks because we've never had women come with experienced palates. We know they drink more than 100, but we know we have documentation that they've drank 100 different whiskeys.
Officially.
Right. And so, Scott hasn't actually officially drank 100 whiskeys. We know he's drank way more than that, but he's not quite on the board yet.
80-something.
Right.
Yeah.
The rules and how you get up there is
I'll get there.
convoluted. But
Yeah.
the point is,
It's not convoluted. It's pretty straightforward.
You drink 100, name.
You drink 100.
You can't have
different ones.
You can't have old fashions all the time.
no, that's true.
Right.
That's true. That's true.
I usually drink from our locker, which is the problem.
Right. The problem is once you drink a whiskey a second time, it doesn't count.
100
It's definitely
different.
a commitment.
Right. And
Yeah.
I was just quite impressed with Aaliyah's progress because she did it the fastest I think I've ever seen. And then,
I mean, I may have gone into liver failure, but
yeah,
it's all good.
right. She
all
needed
good.
a
But you're fine
transplant.
now.
It's fine. It
Right.
regrew.
And once again, Paula quietly did. I mean, she was just all of a sudden she's like, oh yeah, I drank 100. I'm like, wait, what? How did that happen?
All of a
'Cause
sudden-
she was just consistently like showing up every day, going to work, bringing her lunch pail, unpacking her 4 or 5 whiskeys and
I
going
agree.
home.
Flask.
It did take about a year. I did.
Okay, yeah.
And so these are two very experienced whiskey drinkers, and we've had some tremendous whiskey ladies on before.
Right.
They've been very game. I mean, Sue has developed quite a bit of a palate. She keeps bottles of whiskey at home, and she talks to us about them. And of course, Siobhan has become a full-fledged whiskey drinker.
Yeah. Her whiskey shelf is better than mine right
Yes,
now.
and she has a very nice collection right now. And
And Rachel also.
And Rachel has too. Yes, Rachel's a very, very experienced drinker too. But none of them come in with the pedigree of Alleah and Paul. And I think that's why we're so excited to have them on for the Journeyman episode. Whiskeys that they might have dabbled in, but these three I don't think they have any experience with. I don't have any experience with these particular three. So
Yeah, we definitely drank the Last Feather Rye on the podcast.
Yes.
It was in one of the Whiskey Madness
Yes.
things. And then we drank, of course, on the wheat whiskey episode just about 6 months ago, the Corsets Whips and Whiskey.
delicious.
Yeah. So, Whiskey Chicks, how much history do you have with the Journeyman whiskeys?
I will say I have to agree that I am not 100% certain if I did have it. So I'm going to go with I have not tried it.
Okay.
I should have prepared myself and kind of reviewed my
No.
my list.
That's fine.
But
That's false.
Your
but no,
spreadsheet?
yeah, my spreadsheet. Yes.
Spreadsheet.
Which well done, Anders. Keeping track and
Yeah.
always making sure everything counts.
I don't know how he does it.
I don't either, and
Nope.
it's a fabulous thing. So
I feel like I need to phone a friend, which is Anders.
Right.
And ask
I
him.
swear, I was like, hello, Anders.
That would be great if you just, hey, Anders, how many Journeyman whiskeys did I have?
I know for a fact I had one of them very, very early in my whiskey journey.
Yeah.
Okay. Could be the last Feather Rye. That's the one I
That's-
think people
It's probably
drink the most.
I don't really recall. All
Yeah.
I know is from then to now, my tastes and my palate have just completely changed.
Agreed.
So it's funny when we talk about tasting notes and what do you smell. And for me, all I really remember about that, I'm going to apologize to Journeyman right now. I had notes of envelope paste.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of what I tasted. So I'm really excited to try these and
All right.
to sort of see what's what.
Right,
Right,
and how your
so-
taste has evolved.
Yes.
So what we're going to be trying from Journeyman today, and I will say that I was impressed to find out that Journeyman was a grain to glass distillery, meaning that they basically mill the grain on site and then turn that into the raw spirit, let's say ferment on site, add the yeast on site, and then distill it. And so Journeyman, we're going to be tasting, I think, a nice mix today. We have their original Featherbone bourbon whiskey. For those scoring at home, it's batch 185, bottle 364. Oh, man, 363 is easy to get, but that 364 is hard.
Oh,
to
yeah,
find.
you were lucky to get that.
Yeah.
though.
Then we have for their rye, we have their handmade Not a King rye. These are all 90 proof, by the way.
Yeah.
This is batch 4, but bottle 3,453. They're just pumping these out.
Okay.
And we have a 4-grain Silver Cross whiskey, handmade and organic. The rye one says handmade in rye, not organic. So I don't know why that's not organic. I don't know what busted rye they're using. I'm just kidding. So, so we're going to start out. I think we're going bourbon rye.
We're going to do bourbon rye 4-grain, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we already have the bourbon in our neat glasses, and Scott's going to tell us about it.
Yeah, well, we're going to tell the history of the Journeyman Distillery. It's not a really long one because they haven't been around a while, but there's a story about the town in which they are based. So the story of Journeyman Distillery starts appropriately with oak, 3 oaks to be exact, actual trees which, although they no longer exist today, in the 1850s served as a guidepost for train engineers located as they were just 5 miles from the Ohio border and 10 miles from the shores of Lake Michigan. Around this time, a town called 3 Oaks was settled thereabouts and would welcome the Warren family from Vermont, whose 11-year-old son would change the city's fortunes forever. The boy named Edward Kirk Warren, but also known as E.K., would eventually work in the town's only dry goods store. Upon reaching adulthood, E.K. would open his own dry goods store as the city began booming due to the westward expansion going on at the time. And so it was that while running his store, he began receiving multiple complaints from women about their corsets. Ladies? Which, being made from whalebone, would become stiff and brittle over time, first pinching their ribs and then failing altogether. But having recently visited feather duster manufacturer in nearby Chicago, E.K. noticed that the less fluffy turkey feathers, though still strong and pliable, were being discarded, and he wondered if they could somehow be used to replace the less sturdy whalebone. So for over a year, E.K. toiled working on design specs and procedures for the feathers to be used in corsets, ultimately applying for it and receiving a patent in 1883. After that, he started the Warren Featherbone Company, and his product took off, reaching worldwide prominence and replacing whalebone corsets for good. The product did so well, in fact, that E.K. was able to start a bank, buy a newspaper and several local shops, and help the town build sidewalks, roads, power lines, and even an entire water supply system. His company would also go on to make several other products, including other types of ladies' apparel and oddly buggy whips. But before everyone gets the soft and fuzzies for the man, E.K. Warren was in fact a staunch prohibitionist. And in 1896, led the campaign to close 3 Oaks' only saloon, which perhaps unsurprisingly led to an assassination attempt. Was that you, Ed? That was you.
And no one knew I was a time traveler.
And yet, despite all that, E.K. continued to shepherd 3 Oaks into the 19th century, finally retiring an exceedingly wealthy man in 1914. Unfortunately, he didn't get much time to enjoy his riches as he died just 5 years later after a debilitating bout of pneumonia. Fast forward nearly 100 years, and 3 Oaks native Bill Welter, a golf enthusiast and eventual world traveler, which is, I guess, where he gets Journeyman from, would move to St. Andrews, Scotland, befriend a man from Tasmania, Australia, and together form a friendship and a lifelong love of Scotch. After traveling to Tasmania to visit his friend's new distillery, he returned to 3 Oaks with a desire to distill his own spirits, eventually purchasing and renovating the old Featherbone Company's Corsets and Buggy Whip factory and building a distillery from scratch. Today, the Journeyman Distillery has expanded into a restaurant and catering event space with nearby lodging and even a putting green. And of course, it produces several types of spirits, including bourbons, ryes, 4-grain whiskeys, wheat whiskeys, flavored whiskeys, vodkas, gins, rums, and liqueurs, some of which are named after the products once made by the town's historical scion, E.K. Warren.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I saw the owner talking. He's actually a very young-looking guy.
Yeah, I don't really know how old he is.
I mean, he looked to me like he was in his 30s. Now, he might be older than that now, but I don't know when I saw the interview. But he talked about living in Scotland, how it changed his whole perspective on things. And he talked about how he really wanted to bring back the 1800s, the shape of the bottle, even the labels. And the same person does the original art for all of them. Julia Hall.
Julia Hall.
She does the art for all three bottles we have. The Featherbone Bourbon Whiskey, the Not a King Rye Whiskey, and then, of course, the Silver Cross Whiskey. So.
All right, so the Featherbone, these are all, as Ed said earlier, 90 proof.
All around $45.
All around $45.
Very affordable. That's what we found them at. I found $45, $45, and $46.
Oh, great.
Do we know how old these are?
Scott will
are
tell
they
us.
aged?
Yeah, there's no age statement, but they are purported to be at least 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Only the mash bill changes. So the Featherbone bourbon that we're going to have first in our neat glasses right now, the mash bill is 70% corn, 25% wheat, and 5% rye. So no malted barley.
It's got a weird nose, man.
Oh, it does have a weird nose. It won the gold medal at the 2021 Ascot Awards, which, as we know, is their third place prize.
What makes it weird for you guys?
Well, so it doesn't smell like a traditional bourbon.
That's what right. I was expecting corn, vanilla, caramel, and I got...
it smells a little like plasticky, vinyl-y, like a little chemical kind of scent, that not the sweet caramel vanilla that you're expecting.
Are you saying that it smells a little bit like envelope paste?
Yeah, I mean...
Why, yes!
Yes, a matter of fact...
I mean, to me it doesn't. I was only kidding.
No, but I mean, like leather...
Yeah,
he said, but I like vinyl more than leather. And the envelope paste, it doesn't have to be a bad scent. I mean, sometimes glue can smell good, you know?
Yeah. I once had a beer that tasted like a Band-Aid smelled. Like the fresh opened Band-Aid. And it wasn't unpleasant. It was like, this just kind of smells like that.
Nostalgic?
Yeah. Nostalgic, yeah, maybe. Like every time I cut myself, which is a lot because I'm clumsy.
Oh, my God.
I'm getting
Did you get
kind of like a plum.
Mercurochrome. No, I never had that.
Because
Wait, Paula had
That's awful.
taste. Can we get back to...
Oh, yeah.
Paula's trying to do the show. I don't know if you two...
We went tangent.
We went on a mercurochrome tangent.
I'm just following along. So I'm actually smelling kind of like a plum kind of note in there.
Interesting. Okay.
I can see the dark fruit in the front now.
Like a
once I get past...
skin of a plum.
I'm getting a little more dark cherry.
I mean, it's definitely like a stone fruit, you know.
Yes.
I'm almost getting a little bit of like cilantro. It's so herbaceous to me. This is crazy. I enjoy the smell, but this doesn't smell like a bourbon to me.
No, it doesn't.
That's what's throwing me off. Did I pour the right one? The bourbon's gone from the bottle, right?
Yes.
Yes. It's the only one that's got a crack.
It is the only one that's open.
It is smelling
Seal.
like I thought the Silver Cross might smell. It's really strange.
Yeah. Okay, let's taste it. Oh, yeah, not unexpected. This is kind of how, from the smell, what I expected it to taste like.
Yeah.
A little vinyl-y, a little young rye.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of corn now, but raw.
Yeah. It's a strange sweetness on the very finish, and it's a little drying.
Yeah, the finish is brief, too.
Yeah, I don't get any like pepper on it or anything. It just has that nice mellow flavor.
I can see why it's worth a gold, but not a double platinum.
Yeah, because if you were told this was a bourbon, and then you'd be like...
Yeah, if this is at the bourbon table, I'm confused.
But it's unique.
This is definitely a different take on bourbon.
I've never tasted a bourbon like this before.
No, I'm inclined to agree. If I did a blind tasting, this would not be a bourbon to me.
No, right. If somebody asked you what style of whiskey is that?
Yeah,
no, I don't think any of us would guess.
No.
I think it's actually echoing like a single malt or a malted rye or something like that. It definitely has a different finish.
I think it's their wheat is really expressive in this because it's 25% wheat. It's sort of overwhelming all of the other taste profiles. I am getting a little bit of cinnamon at the end, like baking spices type of stuff. There is a sweetness there that I cannot identify, and it's so fleeting.
You know, Scott, in your intro, you speculated about his traveling, and maybe that's why it's called Journeyman.
Yeah.
But do you know what a journeyman actually is by way of a profession?
No.
Really?
I don't think so.
I feel like you're full of useless knowledge.
I usually am.
Oh my God.
This is one I'm not. Now you are.
I know. Hold on, let me just take in my moment of silence.
I'll play like dramatic music behind you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So a journeyman, it's like a skilled artisan or someone who's achieved a very high success as, let's say, as a wood turner or as an electrician.
Specialized in their field.
Yes.
Well,
they're not just some schmo off the street. They're like, I can plug this in and
I'm getting you. Yes.
I can connect back red to red and black to black, and I can call myself an electrician.
Starts in the Middle Ages. After you finish your apprenticeship,
Yes.
you have the option to complete a masterpiece and be considered a master, and then you can open up your own shop with your own apprentices. Or if you don't want to deal with that, once you get graded out with your masterpiece, you can just go to work and you get papers and you can travel around. Because another reason it's called a journeyman is you go where the work is. So if you're a mason, then you go where they're building a castle or where they're building a cathedral, and then when the work's done, you can move somewhere else. So that's right. She's 100% right for that.
Oh, I love hearing that I'm right.
So that's really cool. What Ed said, he was trying for an old-timey feel.
Right.
A journeyman is an old-timey name for the whiskey.
I mean, and if you look at the building that they occupy,
the
where the
buggy
distillery
whips and
is,
the corsets
it's
and
that original building where they manufacture and they distill. So I tend to think that it's more of a nod towards that Featherbone corset industry.
Yeah.
Because clearly a man developed corsets.
Right.
Yeah.
Here, ladies, wear extra ribs on top of your ribs.
Yes. Well,
I think that Titanic is the scene I remember
It's
most.
not-
When her
the
mom's
bedpost?
pissed off and she's like got her knee in her back and
Yes.
she's tightening up. She's basically like, why don't you stop being such a bitch, Rose? And you're going to screw it up for all of us.
yes, she's literally like holding on to the bedpost.
Yeah, it's weird that in a movie like that really encompassed what's terrible about corsets to me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that seems terrible.
Yeah.
And especially with the namings of some of their products. You have Featherbone. What's the other one?
There's a buggy whip.
Yep.
And then corsets, whips, and whiskey, of course, is
Right.
the higher expression of the buggy whip.
Then there's a barefoot in the kitchen bourbon, I think.
Right.
It's the know your place rye.
Right. But ironically, she's the one cracking the rip on the lip on the
Right.
bottom.
She's a
Right.
Oh, so there is that.
right.
There's a
There is
Featherbone
that.
feminist bourbon.
Feminist movement. Yes. Yes.
So what else are you guys getting on the taste of this? Anything?
Whips.
I really taste the whip.
No.
Whipping good. I mean, do you like it?
It's not awful. I don't want both listeners to think that
Wow.
that we're like bashing this
Well,
and no, don't try it.
Well, you're both here. So.
I know. Well, dear future self mentioned
I
that
just
next week.
I just don't know how you two travel to 88 other countries.
Right.
And download all of our
Talk about world travelers.
We
You
tag
two
team.
must be.
Journey Women. I did call them that in the intro.
We tag team.
Oh, listen, hey,
okay.
what you guys do in your free time is none of our
Yeah,
concern.
tag team. Wow.
I do have a hot air balloon.
Just don't run with scissors. You know what I'm
Oh, a
saying?
hot air balloon. That's nice.
Except for in storms.
So, Paula, what do you think about this?
I mean, it would be something I would drink. It is good, but it's not one of, my favorites. But it has a good taste because it's not that burn and it doesn't linger with kind of the fumes. It doesn't have that kind of lingering there. But it is
High octane.
I think it's proofed correctly. Like, we're high proof guys, but this at 90 proof, it's peppery and spicy enough.
I think it's a nice change of pace for $45. I don't think it's overpriced. I think that some people are going to be like, oh, wow, this is really nice. Like, I think it depends on your particular palate. I've drank the, Last Feather, Corsets, Wits, and whiskey. I've liked better. So maybe if I'm looking at it from just a journeyman perspective, it's not my favorite journeyman, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be for me.
But it does taste like a journeyman, right?
Yes.
It kind of tastes like their other whiskeys.
Absolutely, because they're all original products. Like, their whiskeys don't taste like anybody else's whiskey.
No, they don't. So what's interesting is, what if you didn't know this was a bourbon?
Yeah.
What if you said, okay, try this rye? Well, now what would you think about it?
Right. Or try this.
You know what I mean?
Try this 4
Yeah.
grain, and would my mind be different because I'm looking for something else? It's possible. Yeah, I'm looking for a bourbon. I'm not getting what I expect. It could be coloring how I'm enjoying this right now because I really was looking for vanilla and corn and caramel, and I didn't really get any of that.
And yet that's what it is on the shelf. So if you're buying it, you really need to know that this is not a bourbon like you might
glad
think a
we started-
Traditional.
Yeah.
I'm glad we started with this one.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't listen to me Scott. Again.
yeah,
Again.
right. If we ended with this, it would be kind of weird. 'cause now,
I feel like,
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
the reason what she said off air was, well, bourbon's normally sweet and desserty. That'd be a great
Right.
So she'd be like, it'd be a great ending.
Yeah,
And
I would be.
And it
that's what I'm
wouldn't be
saying.
sweet and desserty at
right,
all.
it's not sweet. It's not desserty.
I'm getting a little peppermint now. That's so weird. It's just real. This has weird flavor profile going on.
Well,
in
do you
this.
have tasting notes?
I do have tasting notes. Thank you, Alleah.
You're welcome.
All right, so this is from whiskeyconsensus.com. See if we agree with our consensus. On the nose, rich, creamy chocolate and peanut butter like a Reese's cup with
No.
floral notes and cherries.
Cherries, and
Cherries.
I can see dark chocolate or some cocoa notes. I don't get any peanuts at all. but
No,
go ahead.
not the peanut butter. Palate, they also say peanuts, cinnamon.
Right,
spring-
Leah, do you get any peanuts on it at all?
No,
Peanuts,
none.
peanuts at
Paula, any peanuts?
No. No penis.
Ever?
No penis or peanuts.
Ever. She's married.
Yeah, exactly.
Peanut, cinnamon. I did say cinnamon. Spring flowers, light caramel, and dark chocolate.
It's what?
Spring flowers, yeah.
flowers.
On the finish, medium with notes of cinnamon, chocolate, and nuts. I mean,
Nuts.
not the nuts, but
No.
I can see a little bit of dark chocolate.
You don't get any nuts at all?
Definitely cinnamon.
No comment.
How do you handle that?
Well,
How do I handle no
well,
nuts?
she doesn't.
There's no nuts. How are you handling them? You're not.
Gently is the key word here. Anyway, so
Oh,
the,
geez.
There are none.
All right, so on that note, I think we'll take a break. And then we'll come back with the second whiskey and the Whiskey Chicks origin stories.
yes. So tune in for that. We find out
Dun,
how
dun,
they
dun.
became whiskey degenerates, just like Scott and I.
Right. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, we are back talking about Journeyman Distillery, and this time we are on Not a King whiskey. And telling us a little bit more about it is Not a King Ed.
Actually, it's me.
Well, but I will say.
Oh, just kidding. Not a King Scott.
Who heard of a
No.
King Scott?
It doesn't matter.
Not a
Neither
king.
one of them are kings.
No, but Scott is a Scottish lord, as we know.
Yes.
And there is a picture of George Washington on the label, which Scott, I'm sure you're going to tell us is where the Not a King comes from.
That is true. And that's about it. That's the story of it.
Well,
That's why
because
they named it.
because he didn't want to be
Right. He didn't want to be a king. I don't know why they named the rye that.
right. So the bottle says George Washington, unlike many in possessions of leadership, was not motivated by power. After the war for independence, many suggested he become America's first king. Washington rejected the notion of self-aggrandizement. Aggrandizement.
Aggrandizement.
Do you want me to read that?
It's small. Fought
Not
for
the
the
first time he's heard that.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry you walked into that.
Evidently, no one walks into it.
Like,
Right, I'm in a contract dispute right now.
All right. So this is the Not a King
No,
rye.
No, she's
Not-
going to read the
not a-
back.
Oh, she's going to read it.
Not
Okay.
a
I'm reading
king.
anymore.
Where did you leave off?
Just restart.
Yeah, just
No.
read the whole thing.
No, he
Okay.
left on the self-aggrandizement.
Yeah.
And instead fought for the sake of the American Republic. Washington would become the father of the nation, not a king. The end.
All right. The mash bill is 60% rye, 35% corn, and 5% barley, not apparently malted barley.
That's a decent rye mash.
Yeah. 93 points at the 2022 Wine Enthusiast magazine rating.
Ooh,
93 points. That's pretty good.
okay. Oh, this smells sweeter to me.
Oh, doesn't it? Isn't
Yeah.
it
Right?
freaking weird?
Wow, this smells like something else.
So if the
It's-
bourbon smelled like this, I'd be like,
Right.
yeah.
This definitely smells.
Definitely rye grain though on it. But it has 35% corn as its secondary grain, but the other one is 70%
No, I
corn.
mean-
But see, this one doesn't have any wheat in it.
Right.
And I think we were getting the weedy flavor in the bourbon. I mean, it is sweet and grainy. I'm getting anise on this. Like a little licoricey.
Yes, I'm getting a little licorice on that.
I mean, I get some traditional bourbon notes as far as I get some sweetness up front with some vanilla. But then there is definitely something I can't put my finger on.
Is anyone
Tried
getting
not
a
to
maple? Like
Oh,
not,
a
so
maple.
much,
That
not
might-
so much like a syrup maple, but like there's a slight note of kind of like that maple mellow.
Like
Thank
a
you.
maple saltwater taffy.
Right, because it's not like
Interesting.
you've opened,
maple
a Vermont
saltwater
maple syrup
Yeah.
bottle.
Yeah, almost a malty.
Is it molasses?
Oh,
Maybe.
maybe like a malt ball or something.
You know what?
But yeah,
I'm getting like almost piney.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting a little tiny bit of like a char, I guess.
yeah,
It's
I can
probably
see. So let's taste it. I think we just really went all in on the nose.
almost like a cigarette butt. Oh, that's interesting.
Wow. Again, not what I expected.
No.
Because it tastes like nothing we smelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sweetness is there, but much briefer than I thought it was going to be. I tasted what I smelled right up front, but boom, it was gone.
Oh, these are different. I get a little bit of minty quality to this, not like a peppermint or like an herbal mint.
Like you chewed on some spearmint.
Yeah, like an actual mint leaf.
Anybody get, leather to this on the tobacco or leather?
Does anybody feel like Ed might have a leather fetish? Just
anytime you want to stop wondering, just let me know.
Played.
I can take that wonder right out of you.
Well played, Ed. Well played.
You'll be wearing long sleeve sweaters to work for a while.
And some corsets.
And
scene.
And we'll cut those last two sentences. All right.
Will we? I don't know. I like it. Kind of like it. Paula, what do you think?
She's like, I think you should leave him in, Scott. No.
I'm like, wow.
We mean the whiskey.
Must get like a medicinal kind of flavoring.
Yeah, this is different. It's very oaky. It's very woody. It tastes young.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it has so much complexity and flavor to it. It's just not what we expected.
I like it a lot better than the bourbon that we just had. That's for
I do
sure.
like it better than the bourbon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a short finish for me.
It's hotter than the other one, and it's the same
I
proof.
think so too.
I can't say that it lingers longer than the bourbon because I thought the bourbon had a short finish too.
The bourbon for me was longer.
To me, it has a little bit more of like a flatter taste. Kind of get like that oak.
I get a lot of oak. That's a great point. The oak is very prevalent, which I wonder why, because it's not that old. And yet,
right. It's the youth of it, though, because when you first put a whiskey in a barrel, you're going to get a lot of its immediate intensity. And then over time, that ends up mellowing out.
Right.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, they really handcraft them. Like, I was watching the video for the Naughty King Rye. They're literally filling 4 bottles at a time.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows distilleries knows that that's unbelievably small handling of a distillate.
I'm getting a little bit of a chlorine pool kind of taste now. These are strange whiskeys. That's not to say that they're bad, because they're not. But these two are very odd.
You know what I think it is? I don't think they're falling into any real category.
They're not.
It's like they're not following the rules.
Right.
Right. And since we've all drank over 100 whiskeys in our life, 3 of us documented, we could say that
one is still undocumented.
we would say, right,
I'm an undocumented whiskey drinker. They're going to, oh shit, ICE is here. Oh, they're carrying me away.
I know that.
Guys, do the podcast without me.
Now that he's gone.
I'm back.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
Sorry, Aaliyah. I'm back.
We were close, Ed.
So what I'm saying is that for people who've drank a lot of whiskeys, these two are not fitting into a cubbyhole. And I think if I was Journeyman, they'd be like, listen to us going like, that's right.
Right.
Because we didn't want to fit
That's
into a
our
cubbyhole.
intent. Right.
Yeah.
That is our
It's
intent.
definitely intentional. I totally agree.
And I get something similar to the Balcones, but though I like these much better than I like the Balcones
Yeah.
that I had. A unique distillery that's doing their own flavor profiles and really not apologizing for it. Like, this is what we want to do.
Yeah, Balcones is a good comparison because Balcones definitely walks to the beat of their own drummer. And I feel like we just don't like that drummer. Yeah. With Journeyman, we like their drummer a little better.
Both these whiskeys have been one of a kind. I can't compare them directly to anything I've had.
All right, so on the nose, this is from whiskey-reviewer.com. Honey oak leather and light spice with a distant odor of BB gun oil.
What?
On the palate, light and creamy corn, caramel, green wood, and rye, which quickly transitions to pepper. On the finish, pepper transitioning to mild white pepper with a sweet and spicy close.
Entitled pepper.
Entitled pepper.
Wow.
So we got leather. I mean, the distant odor of BB gun oil, that's a weird thing. I was getting a lot of weird stuff on this. Green wood, I can definitely see that. Rye, certainly. Pepper, certainly. Creamy sweet corn is an interesting tasting note. I didn't really get that. There's a sweetness on this, but it's.
Is it creamed corn?
I don't think so.
Would you buy it again?
I don't know. I'm going to enjoy it, but
I think I'd buy it again.
Would you?
I think for the price and the fact that, I like to take some time to play with it, make a cocktail with it, because at 45 hours you can do that.
Right.
Put it on a globe and see how it changes over time.
It would be interesting to see what cocktail he would make with this, because it has those herbaceous notes that would be interesting in a cocktail, maybe like a bourbon version of a gin cocktail,
right,
or a rye version of a gin cocktail.
Yeah, true.
So before we take a break and taste our third and final whiskey of the night, we like to get, when we have new guests on the podcast and they have a rich whiskey history, we want to get their whiskey origin stories. Who wants to start? Aaliyah.
Thanks,
Paula pointed to
Paula
Aaliyah.
straight up threw it to me. I think I started drinking bourbons and whiskeys several years ago, mostly because I was trying to cut back on sugar.
Oh.
And, so...
elementary school can be so boring, too.
Right? Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
6th grade just drags without the vodka and the whiskey.
I was over it. So
I'm sorry, how many years ago would you think you made the switch into whiskey?
Ooh, probably like 7 years ago.
Okay.
Wow,
7.
exciting. All right,
Yeah.
And the 100 Club was something that Anders had started at the lounge. And we were all out one night, and my one neighbor made a bet with me that I couldn't become a member of the 100 Club.
Oh.
And he gave me a year to do it.
You're
So
like,
I laughed.
bitch, I'm going to do that in 6 months.
Well, no. Hello, do you not know me? Do you not know how competitive I am? I will literally go into liver failure in order to win this bet. And this was in February of 2020. And then I think I was like 14 in. And then it's almost like he ordered a global pandemic because he didn't like the pace that I was going, and everything shut down.
Wow.
And the lounge didn't open back up until
What, October?
October. It was like a week before Halloween. And my daughter, who at the time was like 14, for whatever reason, she had a very vested interest.
Yeah, your
in
daughter's
me
like,
winning,
"Where's mommy?"
In me
you
winning
winning?
this bet.
Wow.
So she's doing the math for
There's
me.
no dinner anymore. Where's mommy?
Right. Why is mommy on the floor?
Why is mommy still sleeping?
Why does mommy have the shakes?
Why is mommy vomiting?
Right. So she was doing the calculations because when the lounge did open back up, it was only open on Friday and Saturday nights. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit.
My God.
I'm like, what, 86 I have to drink before February? I'm like, Ava, I don't think I can do this. She's like, Mom, I've got you. I'm like, you got me? You can't even drive. Like, who's going to bring me home? And long story short, I achieved my 100 on Christmas Day of 2020.
Wow.
And it's really interesting because over the course of that 100 is really when things I would have probably gagged on, maybe we'll take that part out. The things that I would not have liked in the beginning of my journey. Towards the end, I was like I was
Totally.
definitely had a sweeter palate. Rise, I was like, ugh, no thanks.
Yeah.
Whereas now I definitely gravitate more towards Rise.
Yeah. The more whiskeys you taste, the more you want the next one to
Yes.
taste a little bit different than what
Yes.
you've already had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
that-
people like
Absolutely.
variety.
And that's the theme of tonight, I think.
Absolutely.
We have two that taste completely different than you expect.
And that's actually how Paula and I met, was through the lounge. So we've become, good friends. Friends through whiskey. My whiskey chick. Cheers.
Nice. So, Paula, how about you?
So, I started basic. I didn't really get into any of the bourbons and whiskeys until later on in my drinking endeavors. And, I started with the usual, the Jameson and the, blended drinks and all of that. And we went up to Rhode Island. My son actually had a leadership academy. And while we were up there, we found this bar that had an amazing variety of Woodford that they had.
Woodford, yeah.
Right. They custom blended. So that was like their base liquor. And then they're adding all of these fine nuances to it. So, straight from the bottle, you're tasting these amazing notes. And that's really what kind of brought me into the world. So, of course, they had at the lounge a wonderful Roaring 20s event for a speakeasy. And that really kind of, solidified me into the lounge with Anders. And then you find out about the 100 Club and you're like, oh, I can do that.
I can try that.
Sure, why not? Now mine did take, a year, and thankfully for wonderful flights, so that does help also.
Right. And the tastings
The
also.
tasting, and tastings.
That's why I have like 80 something, just because
Yeah.
of the tasting.
and the
Absolutely.
tastings, go for it, people. They're just spectacular.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's you can't say enough about going to a place that you find your niche, you find friends and company, and it's just a nice, peaceful place. Just a great experience all around.
Yeah, so a lot of people's first introduction to whiskey, like real whiskey, is Woodford. It was Ed's. Ed was
Yeah,
a big
for sure.
Woodford fan, and I was Knob Creek. But so yours was pretty recent then.
Yeah, like I think
4-ish years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like 19 when they
Yeah.
had the
20s night.
the
All right.
late February they
Yeah.
had it, and they're repeating now, this February.
is
So
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I got my outfit. Yay!
Yeah, maybe I'll go this year. I've never been to one of those, but I heard they're a really good time.
No,
It
I didn't
is.
go to the previous ones either.
You have to get your hair done in order to get a key.
We'll get you a guest.
We got to get her hair
'Cause
done.
It's a +1.
but I don't have hair.
Well, you're screwed. Not in a way you want to be. either.
So I poured myself a little bit more of the Not a King Rye because I kind of like it now.
I do.
Yeah,
Same.
I'm liking it now.
I actually always did like it. I just thought it was different.
You did. You liked it more than I did, and now I'm coming around.
I feel like they're pushing me out of my comfort zone. Like I got so used
Yeah.
to just categorizing, oh, this tastes like a George Dickel. This tastes like a...
Tastes like a little bit of Evan Williams mixed
right.
with
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
When we get one that I really can't slide into a nice, neat slot, the first thing is a little bit of rebellion, like, I don't know if I like this, but
Absolutely.
But I really feel like I said earlier, they're doing their own thing and they're doing it pretty well. Once again, this is a relatively youthful whiskey.
Yeah.
We are in a position where all of us have drank a lot of 8 and 10 year stuff, and so that's going to hit you a little different. But that also costs $65, $75. This costs $45.
Right.
And so it's like you have to look at it in the environment of which it's being presented. They're giving to you affordable whiskey that tastes a little bit outside of the box, hits a little differently, and has definitely its own unique characteristics.
Absolutely.
All right, so now can we take a break?
Yes.
All right, so now we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have one more, the 4-grain Silver Cross whiskey. And I have to tell you, this is one we thought would taste the weirdest, so I can't imagine what's coming next.
I know.
That's so true.
All right. Cannoli time. Be right back.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are back with Journeyman's Distillery, and we're going to try the Silver Cross whiskey. And Aaliyah's going to tell us all about it.
Well, I'm not going to tell you all about it, but I will read the back of the bottle.
Yeah, read the bottle, because my eyes have let me down.
Mostly because the old heads in the room can't see the writing.
It's true.
Oh, man, Scott, remember Old Head, like back in college? That was good times, huh? Yeah, man.
Yeah. It was a long time ago.
Wow.
So it's story time with Alleah.
Okay.
Originally... God, my voice is terrible.
I
I
mean,
hope it's better by next week.
It's smoky. It says, give me some Pall Malls, unfiltered.
You know what? I hope it's better by next week's whiskey short.
I have a feeling it won't be
I feel like
somehow.
it's going to be like a 10-day thing for you.
Yes. Worse things have happened.
Wow.
So listen,
Why is
listen,
your
children.
throat so scratchy? Go
Listen,
ahead.
children. Originally, the Silver Cross was given as a medal for golf.
Golf.
Okay. In the early days of the British Open, the Silver Cross would later come to symbolize friendship, tradition, camaraderie, and spirited competition.
And I guess a crucifixion a little bit, maybe? Just from
Maybe.
all, I mean, just
a little bit?
I mean,
I don't
can
know.
you take that out of a cross?
Right.
I'm not being, for once, I'm not being funny. Like, can you
No.
really just not make that
Class,
It's pretty fraught with
let's not interrupt.
with Jesus.
Okay, all right, martyr number 2. Go ahead.
Okay, listen, class.
Okay, continue.
The whiskey is a tribute to the greatest game, both its beginning and
Is
its
it?
future. Whatever.
Yeah.
1% of all proceeds will be donated for the betterment of the game of golf.
Wow.
The betterment of the game of golf.
1%. So
just saying.
45 cents went to golf of this particular
Well,
bottle.
this bottle actually cost me 46.
Oh, 46 cents. I think it was a golf charity related to kids.
Yeah.
That's what I read on their website.
Okay.
I don't know the particulars.
It does sound,
I could look it up, but I don't feel like
it sounds
right
bougie
now.
the way they wrote
Like,
it.
is it miniature golf? Like,
Oh.
how many kids are actually playing golf?
No, it's real golf.
I think it's real
No,
golf.
it's real golf.
Yeah.
Why isn't miniature golf real golf?
Oh, I don't know.
Because it's miniature.
it's-
It's in the
That's
name.
discrimination.
Oh.
Why
well,
are you? What do you have
I
against my
mean-
people?
Only if...
Just because you're short.
I'm like pocket sized.
Right.
All right,
All right.
so this
What
is
do
the
we-
Silver Cross 4-grain whiskey. Its mash bill is equally divided between corn, rye, wheat, and barley. So 25% each. It won the gold medal at the 2022 Ascot Awards, which again was its third place.
Gold medal for the Silver Cross. Got it.
Journeyman spent a lot of money this year not getting any real medals.
Well,
But let's
at least
be real.
not these 3 whiskeys. Like Corsets won the Ascot Awards,
Right.
the entire thing.
So they probably were just like, we can't give them all
The
grade.
Corsets, Wits, and Whiskey, but we already did that on the podcast, so we didn't want to
Which
repeat
is
it.
fine.
Right, but I think we should say that it was Whiskey of the Year
It was.
for the Ascot Awards.
But let me ask you this.
And let me ask Scott something. Ask Scott.
I'm trying to ask first.
Oh, ask me something.
Yeah, Alleah, ask Scott something.
I'm gonna ask Scott.
Especially if it's about the Ascot Awards.
I'm gonna ask if something got a gold versus a silver, double bronze, whatever.
Sure.
I feel like I'm in dance competitions here.
Sure.
The super double platinum. Does it really affect whether or not you're going to taste or try or buy?
Well, I mean, I think you go to the store with a purpose, but I wonder if you walked in with like, I got $50. Let me see what I want to get, and something was sitting there with a double gold tag. I mean, maybe be like,
It wouldn't make a difference for me.
So what we learned about these competitions is that their highest rating level, and it's different for every competition. So you kind of have to know what the competitions are and what they give out. But if they won the top one, that means that everybody on the panel also agreed. So people who have whiskey palates agreed that this was a decent whiskey. And if it's in your price range, it's probably going to be pretty good.
I disagree.
You listen to our whiskey-mentary.
yeah.
Yes.
You have to
It was
listen to
in
our
there.
whiskey-mentary.
There
That's
was
all in
3.
there.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Paula, for listening. Alleah.
Homework.
I can't help it if half of your listeners are here. What do you want from me?
She's doing 20 jokes at us when we actually had 12 of fans. You know?
Right, I know. You should have been around back then.
You know? Wait, can I tell the quick story about how Ed and I met?
Right.
Oh, yeah, this is a good story.
The biggest podcast ego boost of my career.
Yes.
Oh, hands down. So I listened to the podcast and I was like, wow, these guys are actually kind of funny.
Actually.
Yes, actually. So I was like, oh my God, I was like, these guys are really funny. You know, there's, a local connection. And I was like, oh, wow. I'm like, and I was a fan then. And I happened to be at the lounge, and it was literally a week before the pandemic, I think, is when it was. And I happened to be standing at the bar, and I'm terrible at names, but I'm pretty good with faces and voices. And I'm listening to this guy, and I was like, what is your name? It was Ed. I was like, and in the most lounge lizard way, he turned and said, he goes, it's whatever you want it to be. I'm like, no, for real. Like, I'm not trying to hit on you. I was like, whiskey tangent? And he was like, oh my God. And then his like whole lounge lizardness, like he shed his skin. And yeah. Like,
he called me and it was like, oh my God, somebody recognized my voice on the podcast in the lounge. I am the best.
Yes.
And Anders rolled his eyes like, oh,
here we go.
We'll never
Anders
hear
is
the
like,
end.
No.
It was his big moment.
It was.
It's really cool, though.
Yep.
Actually, it is a cool
Yep.
moment.
Then I signed her breast, and then in my mind,
Wow.
In reality, I just said thanks
went
so much
there.
for listening.
With a Sharpie.
Yeah, with a Sharpie.
That shit came right off.
It was a dry erase marker.
Right.
All I had was
Took some bourbon, rubbed it right on there. It's gone.
yeah. I was
It was
like,
great.
All right, so this smells weird, too. God damn it.
All right, let's see.
There's so many weird whiskeys tonight.
this smells finally exactly what I expected it to smell.
Right, so it smells what I thought a 4-grain whiskey would
gonna
smell
say.
like.
Yes.
25% corn, wheat,
It's
rye.
like they're competing with each
barley.
other, like who's going to be the
Yeah,
best
I
smell.
can't pick out.
Yeah, no.
It's like the inside of a barn.
I don't get manure.
I was
from
going to
this.
say,
No.
without the
Not
livestock.
animals. It's we're hay and
What the hell
wood.
kind of barn are you in?
Well,
The food
I don't.
storage barn.
I don't know. I don't have a barn, Leah.
Okay. You
We're
know what?
not
That doesn't surprise me.
farmers.
He
That
lives in
doesn't
an
surprise me.
We
apartment.
just drink it.
He doesn't even have a lawn.
There's a tiny bit of sweetness on it, but it's really strange.
No, I smell more sweetness than this than I did the bourbon. 100%.
There's a green wood smell.
Yeah.
I'm getting like green apple.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say that there's
There's a.
Yes.
Yep, there's green
It's
apple.
almost like you can smell the skin.
There is definitely grass or hay. There's definitely that. I would say hay, and I rarely ever use hay as a
Hey.
As a reference.
I don't.
hey.
I
Hey
don't
now,
get bored.
hey now. This whiskey smells funny. Hey now,
Hey
hey
now.
now.
Add crickets here.
Yes.
It didn't take her long to become assistant producer of the podcast.
I know.
I'm
Paula's
doing my
already-
best here.
She's already inserting
Yeah.
stuff for me to listen to later.
Yeah.
I'll put her in charge of the interns. Shape them up.
Oh yeah, shaped up the interns, Fred and Philip.
No, that's our assistants.
Oh,
Phil.
who's the interns? Oh, right, they rotate out.
Well,
That's right.
It's the new semester just started. We have to wait for them to get here.
If you're wondering why you haven't met Fred and Philip, it's because they don't exist.
They're imaginary
They're
friends.
figments of our imagination,
meet 'em
and
'cause-
I just drank it.
Wow, another different whiskey.
Yeah, this is spicier than either of the two that we've had before. Am I crazy?
Yes.
Yeah, this is not as spicy as a rye.
No.
No,
I
you guys are crazy. This is spicy.
It's spicy, but not
I
as
don't-
spicy as the rye.
I don't get a lot of spice. Just a little
Well,
bit.
you're all wrong. So,
Said no one to me ever.
and what I mean is about it's not burning spice. It's not hot spice. It's
It's scary spice.
she was my favorite spice.
Ginger
actually.
spice.
Like pumpkin pie spice.
I wouldn't
It's cinnamon and clove and nutmeg and allspice. It's all those together.
One thing I'm almost feeling like I'm getting a little bit of that port thing in the very beginning, and
Oh,
then
God,
and then grain and
Yeah.
oak and hay.
So the sweetness just completely passes me by. Like I don't really taste any sweetness.
No, I don't get this.
It's
I don't
very
get sweet.
grainy and oaky and woody and char and
earthy.
Earthy.
See, I'm not getting any of that.
It tastes like soil smells.
no, that's scotch.
I love this because everyone is so
Scotch.
different on these because this
Yeah.
is so strange.
Right. Because even Alleah and I were talking, we're like, well, wait a minute. We've tasted 100. It's, a great thing to do. And it was a fun experience and everything like that. But it's subjective. We have our own opinion about what each of them taste like.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the fun of it. And then also, like she agreed, our tastes have changed over the course of this journey, of tasting and changing it up and, trying new things.
Well, ever since Aaliyah's whiskey got the copper in San Francisco World Spirits Competition, she's been bitter.
Listen, I will take copper any day.
The copper. It's below bronze?
Exactly. It's
a penny.
Right. Ever since she got the tinfoil at
she got the zinc. She's salty now.
You know what? Guess what, boys? It's higher than any award.
Every time she's thought we have a triple gold in editing.
That's right, Alleah.
We're talking whiskey.
You saw it.
You saw the statue.
We're talking whiskey. This, to me, I get much more sweet than
interesting.
Than the bourbon. 100%.
Oh, I agree with that.
I don't get the hay and the straw, and I don't know. To me, this is sweet. I don't know why.
That's amazing. I am getting a little vanilla.
And maybe that's lending to what's making it sweet for me.
I got you. There's not a lot of sweet to this, to me.
I think it has the longest finish for me over the three.
I think this has the most pleasant finish for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very nice finish.
I feel like this is the smoothest of the three that we've had.
Absolutely smoothest. This doesn't taste as spicy or alcohol flavor or the vapors, as Paula likes to say.
Vapors.
They're all the same proof.
Yeah.
They're all 90 proof.
Yeah.
That's another thing about these whiskeys is if you are a proof whore like me and Ed are, well, mostly me, you're going to find a lot to love on these because even at 90 proof, there's a lot of heat there.
Yeah.
If that's what you're looking for, then you're going to like all of these. But I like a little bit of just punch.
A little bit of bite.
Yeah.
You like a little punch to the balls.
Punch to the back of the throat and just give me it. Okay.
Wow.
Sorry. Okay, so the tasting notes.
Moving on.
Sweaty balls.
On the nose, blackberry and pear mingle with warm baking spices, honey, and freshly baked bread.
No. Well. No. I get no yeast.
On the palate, warm and velvety with notes of dark fruit, cinnamon, and toast.
Yes.
I think you actually said dark fruit, Alleah.
Yes.
On the finish, medium with grain and spice and lingering slightly bitter note, not unlike hops. This is from Whiskey Wash. Blackberry and pear,
the pear definitely.
I think we all kind of perked up when I said pear, because
I was leaning green
absolutely
apple-ish,
makes sense.
but pear definitely.
That's the sweetness that I really couldn't identify.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. God, like I get a little bit of honeysuckle, but also like pine.
Yeah. You could like this or not like it, but they're working hard there to craft very unique expressions. This is 3 in a row that don't really taste like anything else that I've had, and I see why they have such a strong following. Of the 3 we had tonight, I probably wouldn't go out and buy the bourbon again just because I'm a bourbon guy and I have 50 other bourbons I like better.
Yeah,
but
I think the bourbon was the one that
tasted very young.
We liked the least.
Yeah, but some people will like it a lot.
Sure, I think so.
The other 2, I would definitely pick up a bottle and put it in my shelf and, drink it as a change of pace and to keep things fresh.
Yeah, you want to go through their other spirits?
Sure.
Scott, well, before we do that, Scott, which do you prefer, the Silver Cross or the Not a King?
So I became a fan of Not a King at the end of the actual recording and during the break. Yes. I really like it a lot. I definitely came around to it. I would say this is a close second, and the bourbon was. It's just so strange. These are all so strange.
No, you know what?
It's hard.
This one, the Silver Cross, for me.
So Silver Cross for you, Paul. I think though you agree with me and Ed.
Right.
No, I do.
What say you?
The Not a King. I mean, I think the flavors just blended better, whereas this one you could almost taste all 4 differently because they all had different tasting notes. Yeah. So, I mean, just to have them kind of combined together, I don't feel that they melded well. Definitely it's nice taste, and it does have a good...
whiskey.
It is. Again, like you said, to change it up, but I think I do like the Not a King.
Right. You just preferred that.
I preferred it myself, yes.
That's fine. So we're
well, you guys all suck.
Well, the more for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, so basically the bottle's going home with me.
More Silver Cross for
now we know
Alleah.
where the bottle went.
To Whiskey Tangent.
All right, so
thanks for having us.
The other spirits that they have 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 5 other whiskeys. The Last Feather Rye, which we talked about, that's 60% rye, 40% wheat. It's also 90 proof. It was in the 2021 Whiskey Madness. It used to be called Ravenswood Rye because the first batch of it was distilled in Chicago's Ravenswood Distillery. So they named it Ravenswood Rye, and then they got a cease and desist order and. And then the company named it Last Feather because they said that they took everything but the last feather of the Ravenswood.
Genius.
Yeah, so the Corsets, Whips, and Whiskey, which is 100% wheat, the cast strength of their buggy whip, we did on episode 57 last September. They're the wheat whiskey episode. Three Oaks single malt they have. It's 100% malted barley. It's not also 90 proof. They have a Kissing Cousins wine-finished bourbon, which is the same mash bill as the Featherbone bourbon, but it's been finished in red and white wine barrels.
Interesting.
They have a WR white whiskey, which is Last Feather, but just unaged. Flavored whiskeys, which I almost picked this up. The Pit Spitter cherry flavored rye, which is Last Feather rye with Montmorency cherries steeped in it for like 2 weeks, I think. It won 95 points at the 2022 Wine Enthusiast, and it was tied for 8th in their top 100 American whiskeys of 2022. All whiskeys. A flavored whiskey.
No.
That's almost why I picked it up.
No.
We had the Field Rye. We had that at the lounge. We tasted it. It's basically their Last Feather with Black Mission figs. Wow.
Ooh.
That was really good because it had like that subtle figgy sweetness to it,
Yes.
and it was syrupy and dark and delicious. It was really good. They have Humdinger Jalapeno Spirit, which is their white whiskey with jalapenos in it, and American Holiday Bourbon Cream Liqueur, which is their Featherbone with heavy cream and holiday spices.
Oh, I'm on board for that next year.
Oh yeah, it's sort of
For
like
some eggnog.
Yeah,
Right.
like an eggnog, exactly.
that's
So they have 3 liqueurs, 3 gins, 3 rums, a brandy, and a vodka. We don't have to go through those because they're not whiskeys. And that's their full complement of spirits that they produce there in Three Oaks, Michigan.
Yeah, which is pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
Paula, what's your last thoughts on the experience tonight and the whiskeys?
This was my first experience on a podcast, and I had a great time. I love the whiskey part of it and the company, and it was just a great experience to try all the different types and to have someone kind of have the same opinion that I do to an extent, of course.
Sure.
But then everyone having to discover our own palate to be like, oh, well, wait a minute, taste this, taste that. So it was a great time. So thank you very much. We
Our
appreciate
own
it.
journey.
And I
welcome.
apologize to both of you if your life changes now as people harass you wherever you go about being on the podcast and they chase you down the street. You have to jump in cars and stuff. It gets really old
Well, the good
really
news,
quick.
the good news is no one is going to recognize my voice.
That's right.
Right? Because it will change
Oh my god,
in a
That's
few days.
right.
I sound like a lifelong smoker.
Hey, baby.
Hey, honey,
Hey, do you want a good time?
let me start with some Megadeth.
What?
Scott, what do you think?
What? Oh, I mean, I love Journeyman since the first time I had their Last Feather rye.
That's one of your
I was
favorite
a
whiskeys.
huge fan. And then the second whiskey I tasted was the extraordinary Corsets, Whips, and Whiskey. These whiskeys, I appreciate the fact that they're so original, they're so interesting, and our point that we made earlier is like, I don't think they care that the bourbon doesn't taste like a bourbon.
Yeah.
I don't think they care that the rye doesn't taste that much like a rye. I don't think they care that their 4-grain is a little bit spicy. It's got some odd notes on it. That's exactly what they were doing.
They're
But
carving out their niche.
yeah, they have other expressions. It's kind of young, and it's $45.
They have plenty for you to drink. If you don't like the bourbon, drink someone else's bourbon, but come back and drink their Last Feather rye or whatever. They have some great products, including these. And I'm definitely going to pick up the Silver Cross again. And like I said, the Not a King rye.
I'm a little disappointed that neither of you gentlemen were wearing corsets, by the way.
How do you know?
Go with that.
We could be.
Because I don't see that inverted triangle.
Well, you're asking a hell of a lot out of a corset on my part. I don't know what you're expecting from a. I think you need whalebone and featherbone.
Oh, yeah, whalebone and turkey feathers for
Or
Ed.
do we need... Anyway, I'm not going to say it.
No,
Anything?
go.
No, I'm done.
Come on, Paula.
I'm done.
On that note, Ed, take us out.
So we tasted 3 very unique whiskeys here from Journeyman. We found them very interesting and unique, but they have 2 or 3 outstanding whiskeys that can rival anything on the shelf. So if you haven't tried Journeyman and you like a unique experience and a distillery that does grain to glass, then please, by all means, give Journeyman a chance.
And not very expensive.
No, they're very approachable and
Yeah.
very affordable, and they seem like a company that's trying to do it the old school way. And so I'd like to thank Alleah and Paula for being here tonight.
Thanks, ladies.
You are very welcome.
Great time. Thanks, guys.
So go Eagles. By the time this has come out,
Woo!
we would either be going to the Super Bowl or devastated.
We're devastated, right?
So if we're devastated, all 3 of these whiskeys will probably be gone by this time next week.
Drinking our sorrows.
So for the Whiskey Tangent
I mean,
podcast,
you 3 might.
Right. She's a Giants fan. Shh.
Oh, all right. So
Sorry.
that means all her whiskeys are drank already. So for the Whiskey Tangent Podcast, I'm Ed.
I'm Scott.
I'm Alleah.
And I'm Paula.
Cheers to y'all.
Later.